Christmas was supposed to be magical, but for my 7-year-old daughter, it turned into a nightmare. While I worked overtime to give my family a good holiday, they branded her a liar, hung a cardboard sign around her neck that read, "Family Disgrace," and left her shivering in the corner, hungry and humiliated. I didn't cry. I made a promise. 2 days later, when my phone exploded with hysterical calls, they finally learned what happens when a parent stops being silent. It was Christmas Eve, and I was working the late shift at the hospital. I'm a nurse. Holidays don't mean time off. They mean more patients, more emergencies, more families needing care. I kissed my daughter, Lily, before I left. She was wearing her little red sweater with the reindeer on it, the one she begged me to save for Christmas. Her smile was everything. I thought she was safe at my parents' house. My family had always been complicated, judgmental, harsh. But never did I imagine they would go this far. While I worked a 12-hour shift, my phone stayed silent. I assumed Lily was asleep, tucked under the Christmas tree lights, dreaming about presents. But what really happened would make my blood boil. When I returned the next morning, I noticed Lily wasn't at the door to greet me. That was unusual. She always ran into my arms. Instead, she was sitting in the corner of the living room, her little face pale, her eyes red from crying. Around her neck was a piece of cardboard, strung with cheap twine. It read, in bold marker, "Family Disgrace." I froze. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice shaking. My mother looked at me, cold and unbothered. "Your daughter is a liar. She embarrassed us last night. She needed to be taught a lesson." I turned to Lily, kneeling down. "Sweetheart, what happened?" She whispered through trembling lips. "I told Grandma I saw Uncle Mark sneaking money from your purse. She said I was making it up. They called me a liar." Her stomach growled, and I realized she hadn't eaten. Hours. They had left a 7-year-old child hungry, humiliated, sitting in a corner on Christmas. I clenched my fists. My own family had broken the one rule I lived by. You do not hurt my child. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Not yet. I just stood, staring at every one of them. My mother, my father, my brother Mark, and I knew something they didn't. This was the last Christmas they would ever laugh at my daughter's expense. The air in the room felt like ice. The twinkle of the Christmas tree light seemed mocking, as if even the decorations were laughing at my daughter's pain. I untied the cardboard sign from around Lily's neck, my hands trembling. Not with weakness, but with rage that simmered like a firestorm inside me. My father folded his arms, his voice sharp. "Don't overreact. She needs discipline. You let her run wild. She lies, she makes up stories. She's 7 years old," I snapped, my voice low but fierce. "And she doesn't lie." Lily buried her face in my chest. I could feel her heartbeat racing. She clung to me as if afraid that if she let go, they'd drag her back into that corner. My mother scoffed. "We raised you, and now you raise a disrespectful brat. Maybe if you had a real husband, she'd have better manners." That cut deeper than I expected. My husband had walked out years ago. Since then, I had fought tooth and nail to provide for Lily. Working overtime shifts, skipping meals so she wouldn't have to, standing in the shadows of their smug judgments. And now, they dared to turn my child into their scapegoat? I looked at Uncle Mark. His face was pale, his eyes darting away from mine. Lily's words echoed in my head. "I saw Uncle Mark sneaking money from your purse." So that was it. He had stolen from me. When Lily told the truth, they branded her a liar to protect him. The rage inside me wasn't just anger anymore. It was clarity. They had crossed a line, and I wasn't about to forgive. "Get her some food," I ordered. My voice was cold, steady, commanding. But no one moved. My mother smirked. "If you want to spoil her, you do it. We're done with her games." That was it. The moment. The exact second I stopped begging for their approval, stopped trying to keep the so-called family bond alive. I carried Lily to the kitchen, sat her down, and made her something warm to eat. She looked at me with wide, tearful eyes. "Mommy, are you mad at me?" I knelt down, brushing her hair back. "No, baby. I'm mad at them. And I promise you, they will never make you feel this way again." Her little hand squeezed mine. "Promise. Promise." That night, as I tucked her into bed at home, far away from their poisonous voices, I sat awake in the dark, planning. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to fight. I was going to dismantle their world brick by brick, using the one weapon they never thought I had, truth. 2 days. That's all it would take. And when the calls started coming, when their voices cracked with panic and desperation, they would finally understand what it feels like to be powerless. They thought Lily was the family disgrace. They were about to learn the real meaning of disgrace. 2 days. That's all it took for me to set everything into motion. While my family slept comfortably in their warm homes, convinced they had taught Lily a lesson, I spent those nights gathering evidence. Every receipt, every bank statement, every piece of truth they thought I was too weak or too blind to see. It started with Uncle Mark. For years, I brushed off the little discrepancies. Cash missing from my purse. Extra charges on my credit card I couldn't explain. When Lily told me she saw him sneaking money, it was the missing puzzle piece I needed. And unlike my parents, I listened to my daughter. So I pulled the bank records. I had online access to accounts they thought I never checked. There it was. Mark had been siphoning money through small withdrawals, transferring into an account under his girlfriend's name. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands, over the past year. My chest tightened, but not from fear. From resolve. The next step was my parents. My father, the self-proclaimed patriarch, prided himself on his spotless reputation at church, his status in the neighborhood, his endless lectures about family honor. What would happen when everyone learned how he covered up theft by punishing a child? And my mother, she lived for appearances. She paraded around in her pearls, bragging about her perfect family. What would happen when her friends saw photos of a 7-year-old wearing a cardboard sign that said, "Family disgrace"? I didn't need to imagine. I knew. The plan came together like clockwork. I took photos of the sign before throwing it away. I recorded Lily's quiet, tearful recount of what they did to her, every word trembling but clear. Grandma said I was lying. They wouldn't give me food. I had to sit in the corner. Proof. Undeniable. Then I drafted a simple email. Not long, not dramatic. Just the truth. The attachments did the rest. Subject line: "This is what my family did on Christmas." I didn't cry when I hit send. I didn't flinch. I sent it to the church board, the neighborhood group chat, my mother's social club, and even Mark's employer. It wasn't revenge. It was exposure. By the second day, the phone started ringing. First one call, then 3, then dozens. My parents. My brother. Even family friends. My voicemail filled with frantic voices. "How could you do this? Do you know what you've done to us? Take it down before everyone sees." I ignored every single one. Because while they panicked, something else happened. Something beautiful. Lily smiled again. She wasn't the family disgrace anymore. She was the brave little girl who told the truth. I looked at her and thought, this is only the beginning. By the end of the week, their entire house of cards would collapse, and they'd know exactly who pushed it down. By the morning of the third day, the storm had hit. My father's phone was blowing up, not just from me ignoring him, but from his friends. His brothers from church, the same men who praised him for being an upstanding role model, now questioned how he could sit quietly while his granddaughter was humiliated. One man even told him, "If you can't protect your own, how can you preach to others?" His pride, the thing he clung to like armor, was being stripped in public. My mother fared no better. Her social club, the women she bragged to about her perfect family, now saw the photos. I heard through a mutual friend that they demanded she step down from hosting the annual winter gala. "You can't parade as a lady of honor when you treat children like that," they told her. For her, that humiliation was worse than prison. And Mark? Oh, Mark was drowning. His employer received the email. The company had strict ethics codes. Within hours, he was suspended pending investigation into financial misconduct. His girlfriend, the one whose account held the stolen funds, packed her bags and vanished. The thief who once smirked in my living room now had no money, no job, and no ally. The phone calls grew more frantic. My father's voice cracked in voicemail. "We didn't mean it. Please, think about the family name." My mother begged, sobbing, "Delete the emails. You're ruining us." But the truth was, They had ruined themselves the moment they branded a child to protect a thief. That evening, as Lily and I sat with hot chocolate in our warm little apartment, she looked at me and asked, "Mommy, are they still mad?" I smiled softly. "They're not mad, sweetheart. They're scared. Because for the first time, they can't control the story." Her laugh, light, innocent, free, was all the victory I needed. But I wasn't finished yet. On the fourth day, they stopped begging. They came knocking. I heard the pounding on my apartment door before I saw them through the peephole. My parents, frantic and disheveled. My mother's hair was unkempt, her eyes red from crying. My father's shoulders sagged. He didn't carry himself like the patriarch anymore. "Open this door," he barked, though his voice cracked. Lily froze on the couch, clutching her teddy bear. I calmly set my mug down and walked to the door, but I didn't unlock it. "You branded my child a liar," I said through the wood. "You called her a disgrace. You left her hungry on Christmas. And now you want forgiveness because people finally see who you are." Silence. Then my mother's shaky voice. "We didn't mean it that way. Please, it was a mistake. Just take the emails down. We'll make it right." I laughed bitterly. "Make it right? The only reason you're here is because your reputations are crumbling. You never cared about Lily's tears. You only care that others saw them." My father's fist hit the door. "Do you know what you've cost us? Years of respect, destroyed in days." I felt the heat of rage rise, but my voice stayed calm. "No. You cost yourselves. You should be grateful I didn't take this to the police, because covering up theft and child abuse could have landed you in a courtroom instead of just the gossip mill." Mark wasn't with them. Later, I'd learn he was too busy packing what little he had left, trying to escape the shame. I leaned against the door, steady, unshaken. "Here's my answer. Lily and I are done with you. Don't call. Don't come by. And if you ever lay a finger on her again, I won't stop with emails next time." The hallway went silent. Then their footsteps retreated. Inside, Lily whispered, "Mommy, are they gone?" I smiled. "Yes, baby. They're gone. For good." But the story wasn't over, because the real blow was still to come. For a moment, after they walked away, I thought the storm might settle. But storms don't just vanish. They build until the sky splits open. 2 days later, the phone rang again. This time, it wasn't family. It was a reporter. He had received the same email, forwarded by someone in my mother's social circle. "I'd like to speak with you," he said gently. "About what your daughter endured. About how families hide abuse behind the mask of tradition." My heart pounded. This wasn't just gossip anymore. This was about to become public. National. I asked Lily first. "Do you want people to know what happened?" She thought for a long moment, then whispered, "If it helps another kid, yes." That was all I needed. The article dropped the next morning. It wasn't sensationalized. It wasn't cruel. It was simply the truth, laid bare for everyone to see. A 7-year-old girl branded with a cardboard sign, called a liar for speaking truth, left hungry on Christmas while adults protected a thief. The fallout was immediate. At church, my father was stripped of his position. The same men who once shook his hand now turned away. My mother's phone went silent, not because people weren't calling, but because no one wanted to be seen with her anymore. She had built her identity on reputation, and it crumbled overnight. And Mark? He was done. Fired from his job, under investigation, blacklisted in his industry. The man who once sneered in my living room now faced a mountain of debt and no way out. The calls I received weren't hysterical anymore. They were broken. My mother sobbed into the phone, "You've ruined us." My father, his voice hollow, said, "You've turned the world against your own blood." I listened in silence, then replied with the truth they couldn't twist. "I didn't ruin you. You did that when you chose cruelty over compassion. I just stopped hiding it." That night, Lily climbed into my lap, her small arms wrapping around my neck. "Mommy," she said softly, "does this mean we're free?" I kissed her forehead. "Yes, sweetheart. We're free." And for the first time in years I believed it. But the best part? The final chapter of their disgrace was still waiting to unfold. When the article spread, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages poured in, not from my parents or Mark, but from strangers. Mothers, fathers, even grown adults who had once been children like Lily. Thank you for telling the truth. Your daughter is brave. I wish someone had stood up for me when I was her age. For every angry voicemail from my family, there were 20 voices of support from people who understood what it meant to break free. Lily wasn't the family disgrace anymore. She was a little girl who had inspired others by simply speaking the truth. But my family wasn't finished. On New Year's Eve, they tried one last move. My parents showed up at my apartment again, this time with gifts, flowers, even a trembling attempt at kindness. My mother held out a wrapped box, her hands shaking. For Lily, she whispered. We want to make amends. I looked at the box, then at my daughter's wide eyes. I could see the confusion in her face, the part of her that still wanted grandparents, that still wanted family. But I also saw the scars in her eyes. The memory of being shoved into a corner, hungry and humiliated, while they laughed. I knelt down beside her. Sweetheart, do you want to open it? She shook her head. No, Mommy. I don't need it. I just want us. My heart swelled with pride. At 7 years old, she understood something most adults never grasped. Family isn't about blood. It's about love, safety, and respect. I straightened and faced my parents. We're done. You can keep your gifts, your apologies, your empty words. You showed us who you are. Now we're showing you the door. My father's face collapsed into something I'd never seen before. Defeat. He tried to speak, but the words died on his lips. My mother's tears smeared her makeup, but there was no sympathy left in me. I closed the door. Firm. Final. Inside, Lily crawled into my lap with her teddy bear. Fireworks cracked in the distance, lighting up the sky with bursts of color. I held her close and whispered, "This is our fresh start. From now on, every Christmas, every holiday, every day, we write our own story." She smiled, her face glowing in the flicker of the fireworks. "And no more disgrace signs?" I laughed through tears, brushing her hair back. "Never again. You're not a disgrace, Lily. You're the bravest girl I've ever known." As the clock struck midnight, I felt something lift, a weight I had carried my whole life. The need for their approval. The fear of being alone. The illusion of family, when it was nothing but chains. We were free. And somewhere, I knew the phones in their homes were still ringing. Calls from creditors, employers, former friends. Voices demanding answers they couldn't give. 2 days of truth had destroyed decades of lies. They had branded my daughter a disgrace. But in the end, they became the disgrace. And Lily? She became my greatest triumph.